Welcome to the Mystic Detectives podcast, where we seek to unlock the wonders of the unknown. I'm one of your hosts, Crystal Miller.
And I'm your other host, Andrea Marziano. Hey, Crystal, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Oh, I'm really good. I had some trials and tribulations in the night, though. Are you interested in hearing that?
Yes, I am. I also had some trials and tribulations, but I don't think they match up to yours because mine was just thunderstorms.
Maybe I'll win the trial and tribulation contest for today. So last night we were getting ready for bed per usual, and Max went out to the garage to check the door lock. You know, because we always make sure that it's locked to go to sleep, which seems reasonable. And he came back in and he said, "You might want to get your clothes on and put some shoes on." And I'm like, "What? Why?" Because I was already in bed. And I said, "But why?" And he said, "Well, the fire department's coming." I said, "But why?" and I was almost asleep when he said this. And so in that moment of what on earth are you even talking about? Apparently, well, I knew this to be fact. We have a pole in the back of our property, which in this space of it, it's about 20 feet, maybe 30 feet from our log cabin, which becomes significant later. So we have this pole and it has the transformer on it. You know, one of those boxes that creates magic. I don't know. And I'm an electrician in a day job for sure. But anyway, so it was on fire. And there were actual flames going in the air at least a foot. And he said, "So I called the fire department." I'm like, "That seems like a solid choice."
Reasonable idea.
Excellent plan. And so I'm out there, and in the meantime, it's pouring rain. I mean, we live in Washington State. And as Crystal, of course, you know, but our listeners may not recall. And so
I don't live in Washington State. Andrea and her partner live in Washington State. To be
correct. This is correct. And so anyway, it was pouring all day long. There were inches of water in the driveway and all over everywhere. And so our dirt gets really soft and mushy. And so here I am looking at this pole that intermittently is flaring, actual flames. And I'm thinking, gosh, I hope it's not going to fall over because it could fall right on top of, did I mention the wood house? And so anyway, fireman comes and they brought 2 trucks and 3 firefighters. And so we have this long driveway. So the trucks were stacked in the driveway and they're walking out and they come and look and the guy says, "Yep, looks like it's on fire." We're like, "They pay you a lot." No, he wasn't that bad about it. He's like, "Yeah, that's a lot." And Max had taken a little picture and a short video of it while it was flaming the highest he had seen. And so the guy said, "Oh, that is a lot," because it wasn't going as high as that while they were looking. And so Max had called the power company because he could tell it was near the transformer. We didn't know if we thought they were related, but we didn't know for sure. And we hadn't heard lightning or anything. Thunder from the lightning. No, we're good. Okay. I'll preface all of this. I've had 3 hours of sleep. And so, but anyway, blah, blah, blah. So the firefighter called the power company and said, "This is kind of a big deal. There are flames." And the Max had called and was on the phone at the same time with a different PSE. It's called Puget Sound Energy Dispatch, and said, "We have flames." And she was kind of, "Yeah, there's a lot going on tonight. There's a lot of wind and rain and storm." And so we're like, "Great, when are we going to see anybody?" But bottom line is an investigator person came about an hour later. So it was about midnight then, and said, "Yeah, this definitely is the transformer. And we hope it doesn't explode before we can fix it." And we said, "We hope so too." And in the meantime, because it's pouring rain, we figured the fire couldn't really even do anything because it had been raining for 2 full days. And anyway, so the power guy said, "But I'm going to have to turn off your electricity. And when I do, it should stop the flames." And we're like, "Then turn off our electricity." And so he did. But he said about 3 times, "I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to turn it off. Really sorry." No, if this stops flames, you do everything you can. And so they turned it off. And at about, I had finally fallen asleep, and about 3:00 in the morning, 3:30, I woke up, and apparently they had gotten there about half an hour earlier. They worked for about an hour and a half in the pouring rain. This one poor guy going 40 or so feet up on this pole in the pouring rain.
Yeah.
And I just
Hope you had rubber shoes.
What's that?
Said,
Rubber
I hope you
shoes?
had rubber shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the power was off, so that was good. But still, there's some residual in transformers, I understand. But anyway, long story short, they finally finished at 4:30. But then, of course, I was all ramped up because I'm like, ah. And I had gone downstairs to look to see what I could see outside. And I was looking out a window, and it turned out that I was practically face to face with one of the repair guys because he was standing next to the window looking at the meter.
Box, right? Yeah.
And I was like, okay, bye. And so anyway, all told, everything worked out fine. And we got our power back on, but it was quite nerve-wracking because even the likelihood of things actually catching on fire were slim. It was still really unsettling.
I would be really nervous, especially with the log cabin for a home.
Yeah, right.
You know?
It was. So anyway, that was.
I know you have a lot of trees on your property too, so that would have been
tons. Yeah, and when it rains a lot, the ground gets so wet. The trees don't have to have very deep roots here because there's always so much water. Right. And so they do fall easily because even these 40-foot big trees will just go plunk because they got too wet. And so there's always that concern. Anyway, it was an exciting night. Going to bed early tonight. Hopefully no more excitement. And it was raining and really heavily. And when the fire trucks came, I walked up the driveway to make sure we in an RV park. And so I wanted to make sure none of the other tenants were worried or something going on.
Sure.
Well, either they didn't care or they hadn't noticed because no one was outside. So,
oh, that's funny.
And
were they lights and sirens?
They were lights, but they had not turned on the sirens.
Okay.
And we were kind of glad about that. But I did see, while I was giving a massage earlier, I saw one of our tenants' cars come up and talking to Max. And so I'm pretty sure she was saying, so what happened? And so
that's funny.
Anyway, that was our excitement. Too old for staying up all night anymore, I'm telling you.
Amen.
So anyway, yeah, your storms have been off the hook lately. Is that a thing anymore? Is
just, I don't know, off the chain maybe? I don't know.
Whatever, off the something.
Yeah, I've never seen clouds like I've seen in Oklahoma. They just get really defined, I guess is the best way I can think to say it. And they get dark, and it's like I'm learning to know when a storm's coming or when it's like tornado, possible tornado weather. It's only taken me 2 years.
Yeah, I lived in Texas, as you might remember, for 2.5 years when I was young, and there I could feel a difference too. I could feel it in the air. It was a thing. So
yeah. Anyway, why don't we pivot and let our guest introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Natilyn Slagowski, or otherwise known as the Authentic Feminine. Mm-hmm. I'm 29. I'm female, and I live in Utah.
Nice. Awesome. I was going to ask where you were, since we're talking about being in remote locations. Crystal is in Oklahoma. Did you say that before? I couldn't remember if you said that.
I might have. I can't remember, but I am indeed in Oklahoma.
Yes, we both lived in Utah for extended periods of time. Crystal, your whole life, right?
Well, other than when I lived in Holland, I lived 1 year in Texas, and then I lived in Pennsylvania for two school years.
That's right, but you were born there, so yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, what can you tell us about yourself? What does authentic feminine mean to start?
So, I am a psychic medium and a mystic, and just a spiritual person is what I call myself. And through the years, through my own internal emotional mental storms, I have discovered a lot about energy and frequency. And in learning about energy and frequency, I have discovered in my own beliefs personally that authenticity is the highest form of frequency. And so just going along my journey and learning about spirituality and healing and growth and evolution and femininity and masculinity, I have just been learning to embody that authenticity in all areas of my life. And as a feminine, as a woman, that's where the feminine role also takes part in that authenticity.
That's beautiful. I love that. And what does this look like? Is this being a mystic and the other sorts of things that you talk about there? Is this what you do as a living, as it were, or do you do other things, or how do you spend your day?
Yeah, so I have my own small spiritual business called The Authentic Feminine. And I am super big kind of into numerology as well. And so one little quirk about my business name is that the E's in The Authentic Feminine are 3 3s.
Nice.
333.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And so I just feel this desire and this passion to serve others. And so, yes, I do this for a living. I offer tarot readings, and my pride is I offer automatic writings, where I am essentially able to channel straight from the spirit world, the ethereal world, and write messages of guidance, confirmation, future predictions, past life regressions, in writing, in words, on paper.
That's beautiful. When you do these writings, do you just get something, or are you doing a session, or what would that look like for you?
Yeah, so when I'm reading for people, usually it's during a session. I just kind of set the tone based off of the reading as well, and I just kind of go into a meditative state, and I just really feel the energy that I'm feeling. I also some of my gifts and abilities as a mystic is that I'm also a seer, and so I get visions as well as just like intuitive downloads. And so a lot of those writings will happen in session or in a meditative state when I'm really just tuned into the energy.
So do you get words and then you write them down, or is it more like spirit is moving your hand? I'm just very curious about this.
So I mostly get words, messages in words. There are times where it comes out as more like a vision, and I will just literally like scribble on paper, and it is like as if spirit is moving my hand, and I just will remember the visions in my head. So yeah.
So do you draw pictures then? I mean, if you're seeing a vision.
I've actually never drawn pictures of those visions. Most of the time I just remember the vision, or and then tell it to the person, or I remember the vision and then I will write it down from scribbles to words. So if that makes sense, I'll put the vision down in words.
Yes.
Yeah. Does color ever come into play for you?
Yes, it does. Yep. Whenever I'm writing, I also intuitively pick a color. I have multiple colored pens, and I write in different colors for each writing.
That's awesome.
And do you find when you do that the color is significant? Is it part of the story?
Yeah. I get a lot of writings in green colors when I'm getting a reading that's kind of more about abundance, financial aspects, or stability. And I also, when it comes to like love, passion, anger. I get pinks and reds, joy, and like seasonal writings. Sometimes I get like orange and yellow. And I usually get blue for like grief or something about voice or speaking. They do follow a lot with the chakras for me, actually.
That's cool. So, how did you find that you have this gift, this kind of a skill or talent?
So for me, actually, I had a life-altering moment in my life where essentially, just as an authentic being, the nicest way I can put it is my life was essentially on the verge, and when I made it out alive, I just there was an aspect there of internally for me, in that situation where my life was on the verge. I was in such a low place internally, that I didn't know who I was, what my purpose was, where I was headed in life, what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. And so when I made it out alive, there was just this knowing and feeling that there was um, more for me, and there was something for me to do in this life still. And so I started searching for that, and trying to, figure out more about my generational patterns and my ancestry, and where some of the things in my life that led me to that moment were kind of stemming from. And I realized through part of that journey, and that uh, self-love, self-growth, healing journey, that there is a big aspect for me generationally in masculine and femininity, and in stability and balance.
So, could you, if you're comfortable, could you
Mhm.
explain to me what that means to you? That I heard basically that you maybe felt like there was an imbalance that you needed to find yourself in. Is
Yeah.
that something you can explain a little more, or is that a little too personal for you?
Yeah, no, I can explain a little more. So I grew up with parents, specifically, and family, um, where there is a theme of, I like to call it, a lack mentality or scarcity, and and so I didn't grow up with a lot of stability, and because of that, I was always moving around from city to city, and I went to like 10 different schools, and always having to make new friends and let go of connections without, with the ease, and then have to make new connections. And it was really hard. It was really taxing on me. Also, I struggle with my mental health. And, as a child, I was kind of told that I was sick or special or disabled. And that also took a big um, role, a hard, toll on my self worth and self belief and my purpose. And so I essentially just, my whole life, I have had to, I feel like, be the masculine energy for myself. I've had to create my own stability, I that I had a lack of from my parents, and specifically my father growing up.
Mhm.
And throughout the years of this journey of healing and growth, I've realized, um, that I don't want to be in that lack mentality, that scarcity mentality anymore. And I have been learning to, I like to call it surrender, and go with the flow in life. And I've realized that a lot of that energy is feminine energy.
Mhm.
And I'm also a very traditional person. And so as a woman, I would love to be in my feminine energy. And I do believe I am. I am now. But a lot of my life growing up, I was not. I was a very masculine woman. So, yeah, I guess that's what it means to me.
Thank you for explaining that. And I get that a lot because I also grew up moving all of the time. And different skills have to be
Yes.
created to be able to survive that. And I mean, to say survive it may sound dramatic, but really emotionally getting through that is a challenge. And I'm an identical twin, so I have my sister with me.
Well,
Our personalities are very different, and we had different things that we did and that sort of thing. And so I learned early how to fight. And I don't mean, you know, fist to cuff. I mean, just stay in that strength energy to appear okay, to move forward, to always be in action and all of those sorts of things. And not to say that feminine energy is not that, but as you mentioned, the softness, the flowy, that's something that I've had to learn over the years to take some of those rough edges off.
Well, and I've never said this to you, Andrea, but I can say that even your physical features have changed to be more feminine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that when I first met you, you definitely had just your energy, the way you dressed, you know, the way you did your hair, and even like the hardness of your face, like that has all changed.
Oh, thank you.
So you're welcome. It's just been, I didn't even realize it until we were talking about it. And I was like, oh yeah, like you look very feminine to me today in this video. And I remember distinctly upon meeting you and knowing you for the first little while that I was like, what a manly lady.
Well, and it's funny too, because that was when I had my hair really short and I was working as a business professional. And at the time, women got to dress in suits like men. So everything about what I did was in the masculine field. And the fact that you say that is something that Juliana, my daughter, has said in the last probably 10 years. She said the shift and the change in the last 10 years, especially, have been huge. And I feel like part of that is because I just got so tired of fighting every blasted thing. And it wasn't working. My body was manifesting so many different reasons. I had to stop fighting and start flowing. And so anyway, I feel like that's one of the highest compliments you could have paid me. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It's true.
Awesome. So also one of the things that I like to ask our interviewees is, you have grown into some of this feminine. However, I believe that we do start in a place and then we shift. Like I said, I had to shift into some of those roles. You probably did. Do you think that there was a time in your life that you knew you had to shift into that harder thing in order just to get through? Do you remember a something or a time?
Yeah, actually. So I'm just going to be real again because I'm very authentic.
Awesome.
I suffered a miscarriage last year. And that was the part and the moment in my life where I think I really just realized a lot of things, not just the point of stepping into that femininity as believing I was going to be a mother, but also just in so many areas of my life, generationally, the preparation of having a child, it was like I I don't, even more so, I didn't want to repeat certain patterns of instability for my children. And so I think that was the moment for me where I really realized I need to make a change myself, not just for me, but for my child on the way and for the rest of my family and ancestors and whoever else. And ultimately, I think the miscarriage was a blessing in disguise because I know it's kind of cliche to say that you can't ever be ready, but I wasn't ready. I was not ready to have a child, and so it was really a blessing in disguise. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that's got to be so hard, and I send my condolences for your loss there. And I feel like sometimes our bodies try to give us messages, and when we don't see or hear the little ones, we have to be whacked upside the head. And you're much younger than I am, and hopefully you've heard the lesson, and at a greater rate than I did, because I certainly have spent many years not listening, and it's shown in so many different ways. So I feel like that's a huge celebration that you are seeing what path you get to be on, and how you can bring yourself and your family together and moving out of those generational traumas. And one of the things we've talked with other practitioners about, Crystal, is those generational traumas, right?
Yep.
And how I don't think we've really had anyone explain what that could mean. Do you feel comfortable explaining that what generational things you're talking about? Maybe not even specifically what it is, but what it looks like?
Yeah. So specifically for me, I will be specific if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So I struggle with specifically some deep abandonment wounds, which goes hand in hand with the stability. I feel like the lack of stability in my life, and it's interesting how I've noticed that those generational patterns, those generational traumas, they actually, I've learned recently, stem from fear. It's actually more than just the root itself of abandonment, instability, abuse, whatever the trauma is. It stems from fear at the core. And I have noticed in my life that a lot of that also takes a toll on my physical body. That the energy of those, like, it's a repeating pattern, and the best way I can explain it is my grandma. So just to get real specific in my story, my grandma, her husband passed away of a heart attack. I believe like 20 years after they were married. And my mom was 14 years old at the time. And so my grandma never remarried. And so she spent the rest of her life without her husband, raising 3 children on her own. And my mom, one of her children, then went, from the time she was 14 years old, with no dad. And then when she had me, I was her 3rd child, and my dad almost lost his life. And so there was a repeating pattern there of abandonment, not only that you can physically hear and see and know, with the aspect of physical separation, but just mentally and emotionally, you experience that as well. There's an energy of continuance there, and part of that body aspect that I experience is in illness. And I have noticed that a lot of illnesses I have go hand in hand with emotional, mental aspects. Like for me, for example, one thing I have learned recently is that with that generational abandonment wound, the women in my family experience back issues. And so my grandmother, she had degenerative disc disease. My mom has degenerative disc disease. And I, at almost 30 years old, have degenerative disc disease. And I have 3 herniated discs. And
Wow.
so it's a lot, you know?
Yeah.
But in healing that, I've been focused on the body aspect recently, because I believe because they go hand in hand, there's an importance in taking care of your physical body that can then help you heal mentally, emotionally as well.
100%. Absolutely. I agree with that.
I have a similar story in that my great-grandmother got pregnant when she was 15. My grandmother got pregnant when she was 15. And then my brother got his girlfriend pregnant when he was 15. And so that's another pattern, you know, that you see going through.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how we don't even think about them until we start looking for them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like even in cases where it's not exactly the same thing, that energetic flow is, where for the back issues, feeling abandoned feels like the weight of the world is on a person, which creates an emotional and physical heaviness. And as far as the pregnancy is concerned, I mean, maybe it's because there was a lack of connection or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a book called Messages from the Body, and
I have it.
Yeah, I don't know who it's by these days. Sometimes it's Dr. Lincoln, sometimes it's something else. But it's a really good resource. It's spiral bound. It's not fancy. It's about, I'm showing my hands, but I guess only the 3 of us can see them. But it's about 2 inches thick. And,
more than that. Like, yeah, it's huge.
Okay, well, I have it at my house. I'm not at my house. I'm at my sister's house. But
it's a big fatty book. It's about 4 or 5 inches. I'd even venture.
And you can look up symptoms, and it'll tell you, you know, what your body is trying to tell you, what you need to process. I will say that he's very fond of saying this comes from being raised in a dysfunctional family. So, I mean, I think we were all raised in dysfunctional families. I don't think there's any such thing as a functional family, but I will give that caveat that that's a lot of the symptoms.
It's true. It's like in nursing school. What are the side effects of this medication? Headache, nausea, vomiting. Always. But it's true. Like you said, we all have some level of dysfunction, if we're being honest. And really, is that just function? Because if everyone is dysfunctional, is there really ever function? Those are one of those things that who knows. But the messages are really fascinating. And I have never opened it to, oh, my right knee hurts. I wonder what that means. And to find out that it's very much what I'm experiencing or thinking
annoying.
I was going to say that too. It's super annoying because it's right. And it's like the cards, right? Where you'll get a tarot card or an angel card or whatever. And it has a message. And I'm like, stop it. You know, you're correct.
It's like a confirmation.
Now that I know. Right. And once we get the information, we're probably wise to do something with it. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Okay. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And so, wow, that's, the generational thing has been really significant to me because our family has a history of breast cancer, and the BRCA gene And my kids, and I've shared this story before, so I'll be brief with it, but my kids, I told them, you can shift whether you choose into this defect or not. I
Yeah.
really believe you can. And I remember talking with them about it, and my daughter said, "But what do we do, Mom?" And I said, I may not know the exact answer, but energetically, you get to decide. I decided it ends with me, and you get to say, okay, do I meditate? Do I do whatever? How do I live in alignment with this or for this to create a new reality? And when they got tested, they were both negative. And I loved that. And some people would say, well, it's because the gene's been diluted far enough. Okay, maybe. However, it came in every single female in our family that came in the last like 5 generations that got cancer had breast cancer. You can't tell me that it wasn't there. And so, so to be able to shift it. So when you're talking with your clients, when you're talking with yourself, when you want to shift some of this generational patterning, do you have a process you use, or have you learned enough about it yet to know?
Yeah, actually, for me, it's really about my mindset. Actually, it's a shift in perception. I truly believe that we create our own realities with our thoughts, emotions, feelings, character, personality. And part of that generational trauma is that I found personally, and for some of my clients, is that we end up sharing similar characteristics and personalities as generations before us because of these patterns. And so just starting with the thoughts and the emotions of the people before us. And so you start to obtain those same thoughts and emotions and feelings, which then creates your character and your personality. And so in learning this, I've learned it's kind of like a butterfly effect, in the sense of that your first thoughts create your emotions, and then your emotions create your behavior, and then your behavior your character, and then your personality, or who you are at your core. And so in helping start to heal that and bring awareness to that, that's where I take into account the mind and the perception, and I start changing my thoughts first. And some people are like, it's really cliche to have a positive mindset all the time, or have a positive mindset, but everything that is cliche, there's truth to it.
Yeah, exactly. In my day, they used to call that PMA because we had to acronym everything. So positive mental attitude. But I've often felt the same way, that the cliches exist for a reason. Like they don't come out of nowhere. And so like I often, I often think about some cliches, and think about how I could see in my life where maybe it's not so cliche. You know what I mean? Like
I just I really try to help people focus, and myself, on what I like to call an abundance mindset. And that's where I feel like that state of authenticity and femininity comes in, of flow and surrender. Because abundance is more than just money. It's fulfillment, really, to me. They essentially have the same meaning to me. And it's just in all areas. And I think in allowing that abundance to come to you, you deserve, you have to rest. You have to, the rest and the just being present, just being who you are in the moment, is what brings it to you. And I personally don't believe that you go out seeking abundance. You know, you go out seeking fulfillment. There's an aspect that you do have to take action towards. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just being present, being who you are, and being real and authentic is what brings everything that's destined for you to you.
Well, and I feel like some of the flow where we, instead of fighting against everything that we're trying to create or not creating or whatever, part of that rest aspect you're speaking of to me is stillness. And I know that for me, when I listen the best, I'm still. Because I can't hear if I'm yammer, or move. Although I've worked real hard to do that most of my life. If I go fast enough, I'm going to do something. And that comes to mind to me. Another cliche sort of thing is saying pounding a square peg into a round hole. And that is the non-surrender to me. That is the non-flow, because those are the moments that we work to make something happen that isn't happening naturally. And like you say, sometimes we do go out and look for something. There's times we get to go look for a job. There's times we get to go shopping for shoes. I don't know, a new car, whatever it is. If I just sat here waiting for somebody to bring me new shoes, I may not get them. And that's okay. Right. But I also don't have to go out and rip them off somebody else's feet. I can go create what I need to, if that makes sense. So one of the things too, when we had been speaking, you say that you have some knowledge about herbalist activities. How does one say that? Herbology?
Herbology,
there you go.
Herbalism.
Yeah. So what does that look like for you?
So in the aspect of noticing that my body correlates with the mental and emotional aspect of things in my generational patterns is through the illness that I get, right? And so I have really struggled with illness a lot of my life because of that generational trauma as well. And in means to heal, I have gone through medication and therapy all my life. And I have just been resistant to many treatments, you know, in Western medicine. And
excuse me 1 second. When you say resistant, does that mean not wanting to participate, or it didn't work for you?
It didn't work for me. It hasn't worked for me. And a lot of the time, I actually feel like Western medicine represses some of my gifts. It's kind of just like a mask for me, you know? It doesn't fix the problem. It just temporarily puts a Band-Aid on it. And so I've really started researching in more holistic approaches and body practices. And so I started learning about different types of herbs that help with certain different types of things, and learning about different stretches and puncture, you know, acupuncture, pressure points, and just diet and exercise, and how they can help you heal in a physical aspect as well. I suffered with some heart issues recently, and I learned that hibiscus flower is really good for immunity and heart health. And so I've started drinking hibiscus teas. And I kid you not.
I love those. They're so delicious.
Yeah, they're so great. And I kid you not that my heart health is like almost brand new.
Wow.
I can't say like it's normal, but because I've never had a normal heart rate, but my heart, I was having bradycardia, which is a low heart rate, and my heart rate is back to normal for me now. And
nice.
And it was weird because they did so much extensive testing at like the actual doctors and couldn't find answers for me. And as soon as I started working on the mental emotional aspect of why I was hurting in my heart, which was a lot of grief actually,
Mhm.
and a heart chakra blockage, and drinking, the herbal teas and stuff, I found relief. So
Wow. This is me running to the kitchen to get some hibiscus tea.
yeah.
This is me saying, like we always like to say, we are not giving medical advice. This is just a conversation. So
Yes.
True. I like it. So the ways that we can support ourselves, and that's what I look at a lot of this, because I feel like there's a place for everything in our lives, and some things will work for some people or times in our lives even, and sometimes something else will work. And I feel like one of the things that almost all of our guests have mentioned is that when they became in alignment with the time for themselves for the things, that's when they really worked, whatever it was. And I really like that, because people are finding, when I talk to my friends and the people I run into, they're finding that they simply must move into alignment if they want to carry on in a positive way. And I don't even mean positive, just yay, I'm so happy, but just in a way that moves them forward, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is the person wants to say. And I feel like that more and more people are seeing that there has to be a much better mind-body connection than there has been. Because we've gotten so disconnected from ourselves and from others. When we all had the COVID experience, we all learned, again, I say air quotes, that we had to separate ourselves to be safe. And then it's swinging back around, going, okay, so we've gotten too far separate. Now what do we do? What's our next step? And so it's interesting to me to see the people that we interact with finding that the connection is the piece that has been missing, especially in the last few years.
Yeah, I agree.
Our listeners can't see, but it looked like Crystal was going to say something, and I was sort of pausing to wait.
I was trying to think of something, impactful and philosophical, and then I was like, well, I'm just trying too hard. I just agree.
Excellent. And that's something that happens, isn't it? When there's our square peg round hole situation again.
Definitely.
Example here. So one of the things that we like to look at is the mystical piece of what we're experiencing. So you said that you're a mystic. What does that definition mean to you?
So the mystic part in me that I believe is me is I personally view myself as a bridge between this physical 3D world and the spiritual ethereal world. And in having that ability to find the balance between when I need to be present here and when I can tap into a spiritual unknown, something that's more mystical and magical, and again, just something that that it's harder to know in this physical world. I really am passionate about tapping into that unknown, and I don't know if it's because of the generational trauma for me, where I have essentially been in an unknown my whole life, but I find it so what's the word I want to say, like intriguing, and I've learned to embody that energy of that mystical, magical, unknown, ethereal, and I think that has really become an authentic part of who I am. And going along with that connection part that you talked about, it is so much more to me than just connection with others in this world as well. There's a connection with the spirit and the unknown out there, and also a connection internally with my mind, body, and soul. And so I guess that's what it is to me. Just a passion about the unknown and what greatness can come out of it. And yeah.
I really like that. One of the things, when I first started my massage Reiki practice, I put a business card together, and on it, I said, connecting mind, body, and spirit, and healing the world with intention.
Oh,
And
I love that.
I've been in the practice since 2007. And I keep thinking I should update this. And I said, no, this is still my truth. This is still my truth.
Yeah.
And I love that. And when you said that you feel like a bridge, I had this visual image of you standing with one hand forward and one hand back. And it was funny because I kept thinking, well, what is she holding? And I didn't see you holding anything. I just felt you hold, well, except for space. I felt you holding space. And I like, that was just the image that came to me when you said that.
Yeah. Yes, I love that actually, because that is the purpose of being that bridge for me, is creating safety for others to also tap into that unknown, that magical, mystical part of whatever else is out there. So I want to give people the space to be themselves and find passion in that for themselves, if that's where they want to go.
Now, do you use any tools? We've talked with people and ourselves who use crystals or bowls or drums or whatever. Do you use tools in your practice?
Yeah, I do. I read a lot of tarot cards and oracle cards. I am new into runes and rune cards. I use pendulums, crystals. I like even like protection water and tinctures, oils, herbs, incense, all of it really.
Cool.
It's a gateway.
Yeah.
Pick up our first crystal and there we go. Down the healing path. What are we going to do? That's really fun. I enjoy your perspective. I enjoy the feeling of the peace that you're sharing. And I find that just lovely. And one of the things that came up for me is, so I've been on a healing, both physical and emotional journey for many, many years. Well, I still act like a regular human sometimes, which means AKA jerk. And I use the tools I have to shift that. Now, in my history, shifting that could take weeks or whatever. And as I use my tools, it can take hours, moments, whatever I decide, really, because I am the inventor of my experience. And I can choose into the 2-year-old temper tantrum. And honestly, I do sometimes. You can ask my partner, Max. He will testify to that fact. And also, when I choose easy, I make a much better experience for both of us. So when you're in those moments of 2-year-old temper tantrum, which I'm assuming you may have, what kind of tool do you use for yourself to shift out of that, or to even break that generational chain if that's what you're feeling at the moment?
So again, for me, it starts with my mindset and my perception of things. But I do like to go into that stillness, that meditative state. And most of the time I write. I don't know if I spoke of this already, but I do automatic writings.
So do you receive that for yourself as well then?
Yes. Cool. I write for myself and I write for my clients. I have received past life regressions, which are honestly my favorite and the best when it comes to generational trauma. It can be so insightful and confirming, and offer, guidance and future perspectives in that generational aspect. Um, I have noticed so many themes in writings that I've done for myself in past life regressions. There's always one theme that sticks in each writing, and so that's another thing that I love to do. Another tool is I write. I essentially I get visions, and I intuitively hear and know messages from the spiritual world, and I write them down mostly in words on paper.
I've never thought to write anything down. I've just shared the message in the moment to the person. I might add the writing piece, see how that fits.
Yeah.
Kinda good. What about you, Crystal? What do you do when you want to throw a 2-year-old temper tantrum? Do you have tools that you use to shift out of that, or do you just do the temper tantrum, or both?
That's a good question, because I actually don't throw temper tantrums. I do other human things. And the reason for that is because I was a big tantrum thrower as a child. I was that kid that would fling myself down in the grocery store and wail and gnash my teeth. Or I would do really horrible things like say, "This is not my mom. This is not my mom."
Oh, no.
And then I also had, I have a child that was, her temper tantrums were worse than mine. They would go for 3 days. She'd cry herself to sleep and wake up still tantruming. And so I think what I do that's more human, I guess, I judge is what I do. And so when I'm trying to get out of that judgment, that space of judgment, I typically, it actually depends, honestly, it depends on the severity. It depends on a lot of factors, but sometimes I'll just burn incense and distract myself. Sometimes I'll choose a crystal to like focus my energy on and kind of filter out, I guess, the judgment, the feeling of judgment or the thoughts of judgment. And then I guess another thing I do is just, I like to live by the old saying, enjoy your hemorrhoids, meaning that if I'm spending all of my energy being judgy, the person I'm judging doesn't know that. I'm the only one getting hemorrhoids over it, right? I'm the one that's like stressing. And I got that from my sister Liberty, so I'll give her credit. But like,
I've never even heard that. That's awesome.
That's like, I think it's a good way to live, because we often find ourselves holding on to these feelings or these thoughts that are only harming us. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with our audience or share with us?
Yeah, I think lastly, I just wanted to say the biggest thing I've learned on my journey, and offering healing and guidance for others, is that through authenticity, as we are spiritual beings, as we have spirits and souls with a physical body, I have learned that spirit aspect in us, whether you call that God, the universe, is we are that in ourselves. And so when you were talking about the stillness, going into that stillness, that meditative state, when I'm being a human and angry or whatever I'm experiencing, the reason I like to tap into my spirit and myself is because I believe that as we are one with spirit, as we are spiritual beings, by listening to ourselves, our authentic selves, we are also at the same time listening to spirit. And so that's one really cool thing that I have found has helped me on my journey. And just that connection of oneness and balance is really the authentic part of that healing. And I hope that others can find that too, or move forward with what they already are being authentic in. So
That's a
Thank
great
you.
message. I like that.
It is. Well, thank you so much for your time. Now, how can people find you?
So currently I have a couple social media pages, and I am offering services out of my home, or I can do video recordings and send them through email. But my business name is The Authentic Feminine, and with a 3 at the end of the, and a 3 at the E in authentic, and a 3 at the end of feminine.
I bet there's a numerology answer for part of that too. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was
Thank
great.
you.
We'd love to hear from our listeners. To leave a comment, share a story, or ask a question, email us at listeners@mysticdetectives.com. You can also find out about our Patreon and other interesting things going on at our website, mysticdetectives.com. As always, we invite you to subscribe, share, and leave reviews to support the podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Stay curious
And keep exploring.